Greetings. I am Donna Dimely. I am a celebrity event photographer. I am a visual artist. I am a doll maker and doll collector. I am a published author. I am an advocate. I am an activist. I am a stroke triumphant. Most importantly, I am a mother, and this is my story. It is the morning of July 2nd, 1998. While I am sitting in my bed reading, my son, Marc Fitzsimmons, walked into my bedroom to inform me that he was headed to the bank to get some money for his sister, Maya. Little did I know I would never see Marc again.
No, I could never see that my brother would be a violent person that would hurt somebody, especially using a meat cleaver to gash a woman in the head. That definitely would not be a narrative that I would label my brother as. I would label my brother as a peaceful person who studied a lot of metaphysics and was trying to understand about life and the mysteries and discoveries about the world.
The entire neighborhood was out, and I saw police officers like circling where bullet casings were. And I just kind of took note of, like, when I arrived on the scene, I happened to have my notebook with me, and I was like, let me just make sure, that I write down basic things. And I saw Marc. And I just remember him being like the smallest person. He's teeny. He was so narrow, and I saw a bullet hole in his shoulder. And he was handcuffed, and he had no shirt on, and he was rocking back and forth. But I spoke with Officer Ray Marquez, and he said that 3 shots were fired. They were pretty busy for people that fired 3 bullets circling. So, and there were a lot of people. I mean, there were fire trucks, there was an ambulance. Marc wasn't being loaded into it. There was no haste. There was nothing going on around him except him sitting down. And so we decided to stay. We just stayed, and we stayed until we saw Marc loaded into the ambulance. And at that time, I remember, I believe a woman and a man tended to him very briefly, but for the longest time, nobody saw to him. And nobody did anything. Like, there was like a little trickle of blood, but there wasn't anything that set my alarms that I would find out very shortly thereafter that Marc had passed away. I went to work and I told my manager, my managing editor, what I had seen. And by that time, I had also secured a press release from L.A.P.D. It had come over the wire, had the details, a little bit more details about who, what, all that. And their official record of things was not how I remembered.
It is July 7th, Marc has been missing for 5 days. My father called me from Cleveland, Ohio, and asked me the million-dollar question, where is Marc? He then proceeds to tell me that he has been notified by the Cleveland Police Department that Marc is dead in Los Angeles.
It is etched in my memory. It's something that I'll never forget. My husband, your father, had just taken the trash cans out front because they were to be collected that day. He was out front when 2 policemen approached him and they asked him, "Are you Mr. Fitzsimmons?" And he applied in the affirmative. And then they said, "Do you know a Marc Fitzsimmons?" He said, "Yes." So, of course, I was still in the house, and he called me immediately. And when I came out, he introduced me to the policeman, and one gave me a piece of paper upon which was written the phone number of a detective in Los Angeles. When I called, the policeman told me that Marc had been killed in the process of chasing a woman with the meat cleaver. Of course, I was overwhelmed. A meat cleaver? Marc chasing a woman? That was not Marc.
I just remember my grandmother saying, "Your brother has been murdered." And I was like literally in like a ghost like kind of state. I really went like I froze. I didn't know how to react. I didn't know how to filter it, because I kept the faith that he was coming home, you know. I never thought that he just would disappear out of midair, you know.
It's something that just is hard to even fathom, because when you knew Marc would be the least person to hurt anybody. You know, it took me 9 months to even get a police report. And when I got a police report, we called the number of the name and the number, and we went to the address. I had a friend of mine, Elmore Richmond, who was wonderful. And because he was a man, he said, "It's not good for you to go. You know, you don't know, you're a woman, single woman." And he went and did a lot of work, lead work for me.
It was wrong. And they took the life of an innocent person. And thank God that you're still around now, and we are communicating now to be able to paint this picture.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be able to paint this picture just based, I know you don't have all the information that you had during that time frame, nor do you have to. The thing is that the system was troubled during that time frame. Injustice was going on during that time frame. And just like the injustice was going on during this time, you know, we have enough records to show all the way from 1992 during the beating of Martin Luther King. But you can go to Texas, deal with James Byrd. I got information even pertaining to that. What we're talking about a system that has been corrupt. And the thing is that, and it's systemic. And what happened once you find a system that has been corrupt and that has not been justice served in different cases, like the case of Marc, we as a people can demand that action be taken, whatever it is necessary to get some sense of justice, to be able to recognize the problem within that system and taking corrective action to prevent other mothers from families from going through the same type of suffering that you've gone through in this process there.
We called these numbers. Nobody's number worked. We went to this address. Nobody lived by these addresses. So you like, who would have their mother or their grandmother, whoever this woman was, get hit and no one would ever approach our family? That to me and didn't make sense, that no one would ever come forward and say, your son hurt my mother. So, that raised a red flag. I'll never forget my father saying to me, something just does not ain't right. The reporter, Robin Lloyd, who wrote that article that I believe was the one piece of light that I got out of this, said that her gut level feeling told her something's not right when she was on the scene and she saw Marc alive and that they weren't moving him. There was an ambulance sitting and there was just a plethora of police officers, but no one was helping Marc. She said, even if he had done the crime, he deserved to get medical treatment. She stayed, Mom, on that scene between 20 and 30 minutes, and no one, she said, finally, she saw them put Marc in an ambulance.
I just couldn't understand why they would take him to UCLA when you had California Hospital right there. They took him miles away. Just never made sense to me, but as time is progressing, more is coming out, and so we just believe that things will come to a fruition.
Our next speakers will be Donna Dimely. Donna lost her son to police murder. She's here speaking as a mother and also speaking on behalf of other mothers and fathers and sons and daughters, brothers and sisters who have lost their loved ones to police violence. Give your hand and your love to this mother who lost her young son to police violence. Donna Dimely.
Thank you. As a mother, there's a virtual reality I have to face every morning, and that's that I'll never see my son, Marc Fitzsimmons, again. I never thought I'd be here speaking about the murder of my son, Marc, by the L.A.P.D. Southwest Division. My son was reared to be a lover of God, family, friend, and neighbor. He was taught to respect law and authority. He was gifted and graduated from Fairfax High School with honors and was accepted to UCLA at the age of 15 years old. My son died within a 2-mile radius of my house in Jefferson Park, where I sit on the board of directors, and yet the coroner's office never notified me or allowed me to identify my son. They told me he confronted 2 police officers, Thomas Malcolm and Daniel Russell, Southwest Division. They were afraid of a 5'2" and a man who weighed 125 pounds, so they shot him in the chest to protect themselves. How do you leave home, a law-abiding citizen, disappear for 5 days, and then become criminalized?
There's so many stories of interactions with police officers, and there's no accountability at all. There's no transparency at all. We have to just hear a story that they tell, and we just have to take it and run.
You've been such a great advocate. Tell us about your legislation and what you're proposing.
What part of this legislation does is it sews up some of those holes that are created by the system that we have, that where it's supposed to hold police officers accountable, but there's so many holes within the system that they all just fall through like water, and pretty much they understand that there is no accountability. So they act how they want to act. And they, and a lot of them take it out on Black lives, period. And so the 4 holes that we wanted to close up this time with this legislation is to make sure that there is an independent prosecutor, to make sure that there's an independent investigator, to make sure that, they ban the chokehold statewide. I think L.A.P.D. has already banned the chokehold, but this needs to be something that's statewide. And that we also, the 4th thing is that we limit qualified immunity for officers so that they can personally be held liable when there's something wrong.
But today we're all saying enough is enough. No more business as usual, rights for all. Either human rights belong to everyone or they are guaranteed to no one.
And when they use unnecessary force and kill innocent people, they must be held accountable. And the system must wake up and recognize that the people are not going to take this any longer. And God is looking at what's going on now, today. We have to come together as a people to ensure our community are safe for our children and for us as we walk the street, and we never have to worry about a police officer that is out there to protect and serve, that use unnecessary force and not be held accountable.
There has to be something that goes on as far as police reform, and it has to be nationwide. It's not just one. We see it goes on in Ferguson, in Missouri, in L.A., all these places. So it's not just, you can't just say, well, it's just one place. It's not, we need nationwide police reform. And it's also these cops that are so-called good cops, they say, well, it's not all cops. But where are the good cops at? We need these good cops to be able to start blowing the whistle on their bad counterparts. We need more of that. We need less of this, this blue line of where we're going it's us against you. So all the police are going to just band together no matter how wrong they are. That's what happened with George Floyd. When that other cop sat there and watched him, he never tried to intervene. So even though he wasn't the one with his knee on his neck, he's still complicit because he did nothing to stop it.
I'm actually from Minneapolis, and so when George Floyd hit, it was like it hit home literally. Like my brother lives in the neighborhood, and when that target went down, like he had ashes in his front yard. And so like my god kids, they're teenagers and they're upset and they're hurt and whatever. And we have honest conversations about the fact that they have the right to feel that way. We allowed them to go to protest as long as they were in the daytime and safe and whatnot. And just, I think it's just as important to validate people's feelings about it than it is to make sure that their actions are correct. I think a lot of time in our community, it's like, you gotta, do this, we get into the respectability. If you're just respectful enough, it won't happen to you. And unfortunately, that's not the case. So yes, you have to hold yourself respectful, be accountable, but also, know that it's okay to have feelings about this and to talk about them and fight for your life.
I think through the process of your story being told as to how it's being impacted and other people's stories being told and painting that picture, getting rid of the political aspect of it and looking very seriously about what we must do, what is before us in this particular process, it cannot continue going on in the same vein. The people are tired, they're fed up with this, they don't respect the police, and now the environment is unhealthy for the police and also for the public.
That should be a start. There should be some type of diversity classes, because I'm not going to say that everything is about race. Sometimes it's the people don't know any better. This is all they know. They've only been around themselves. And a lot of times it's economics too. So I can't just say because black or white or Asian or Hispanic. No, I think a lot of times it has to do with economics, and because some people just don't know. They just like out here where I live at, half the teachers here, I don't think there's so much prejudice. I just think they have been around very many African Americans. So when they see them, they go by the stereotype because that's all they know.
This is broken down as family on all ends. The Fitzsimmons side, the Dimely side. Our family has never been binded or repaired since this incident. And unfortunately, due to the violence that's happened, a lot of fingers have been pointed. And really, we really can't point a finger until we get a solid police report. Once again, my mother tried her best, even despite having a stroke. As she's mentioned, she had a stroke, she became paralyzed and blind, but she didn't give up on her faith in Jehovah to find the truth about her son. And I commend you about that, LaDue, because a lot of people would just give up, you know what I mean? After all those tragedies and, you know, triumphs and challenges, you know, I mean, shoot, people give up on everyday life. So why would they keep pursuing something that's been a mystery for 20-something years?
Yeah. As a mother, you never give up on your child.
You never. And I commend you that that's what you have instilled in your kids, to have determination and to never give up the fight. You know, always keep a shield of armor on and believe, and always have that ingredient of mixing faith into the cake batter. You can't substitute nothing else. You gotta have faith.
You gotta have faith.
You gotta have faith. So, you know, once again, by having Jan Tucker, you know, being a part of the investigation because of his personal investigation experience, I just knew in my heart of hearts, because I did all that digging and all that searching for those pictures, and I'm like, oh, I just know 2015 we're gonna find the answer, and we're gonna put a close to this. It seems like we're still in the investigation. We're still in the investigation.
Yeah. Well,
so the investigation still is not ended.
Well, Jan was an experienced private investigator, one of the top in California. And when he got this, he said, Donna, smells like a cover-up to me. So on those words, we're gonna leave.
Peace and blessings.
And thank you so much, and have a great day.